Okay, welcome back to part 3 of MTSS and SLDS. Again, we are in the school roster, so if you need to take a minute to pause and get back into the school roster, that is where we will begin today. And in the school roster, we are going to be going to Student Assessment Dashboard under the pie icon. So under the pie icon, second one down is the Student Assessment Dashboard. And again, we're going to look at the top of page 7 in our packets. And our first question is, in the current school year, how many students are at intervention, low average, on the most recent interim assessment? Now, again, depending on what interim assessment you take as a school, is going to have maybe a different language. So here we're seeing low average, bridging, reaching. You need to make your best educational guess as to what low average and intervention would be within that interim assessment because they're not exact wording. They are for some, but not for all. So for this training, am going to go down and I'm going to filter out my 2019 and 2020 school year. And I just want my 2021 because it asks for my most recent. Oh, I apologize. It's too fast on me. And then I'm going to go down here and I am going to I'm going to uncheck all my interim assessments because, again, I'm only going to do the one that I need. I don't need all of these up here if I don't use them. It can take a bit to load. So as you can see, it's saying loading. It takes a lot of information at one time, so be patient in the process. Now, again, for this training, I'm going to go with star and I'm going to click star and it's just going to pull up my most recent star for 2021. I am going to filter this out even further because it's asking what is my intervention or low average. So I have intervention here, which is convenient. Some of you may not have that wording. Again, pick your low average students versus intervention. So I'm going to pick intervention. And it shows that I have 58 students currently that are at an intervention level. Now that I've filtered that out, it has pulled those students directly for me. It shows me what tier they are in. So when we're looking at tiers 1, 2, and 3 in the ND MTSS, it is showing that some of these students are at tier 2, while others are at tier 3. I can go to the student roster and also pull those students out like this. So but we're going to stay in the assessment analysis and we're going to touch base on these two in a bit. What I can do is I can export this out. And again, whatever you're choosing of form to look at is the one you choose. I like this one, but it's just a preference. And that'll pull up and boom, there are your students, their proficiency, and their intervention level in tier. You can print this out and bring this to your next team meeting, your next MTSS meeting, however you meet as a team to decide on where you're at with interventions and kiddos. So I'm going to click out of there. And then my next question says urgent intervention or low. So these are the ones that we are looking at that are probably our tier 3 kids. Now, I had already filtered this out to my intervention. So now what I'm going to do is unfilter again. So clear master filter just by checking. And I'm going to hit those urgent intervention kids. And it's going to pull up just those students. And now you can see that, again, I've pulled up those students for this school year and fall. So they haven't done winter yet, but they have done fall. And then this will continue as you go on, depending on how many times a school year that you do test. And then the last question is, are these identified students currently on intervention and MTSS plans? So if they are not, here's a conversation where it can be had. If you're looking at they're at tier 3 and it's not just in intervention level, it's across the board and all the other data that you have discovered in the last few. Maybe it's time to take a look at why they're not on an intervention or an MTSS plan. Okay, so that is a little bit about this one. Now we're going to go to page 8 in your handout, and it's called the Student Assessment Dashboard roster. Now, I clicked out. You don't have to. I apologize for that. We're going to stay within the same data, but now we are going to ask ourselves questions in the student roster. So again, we're going to move to the student roster. I am going to click out and I'm going to do NWEA this time with star to do a comparison. Now here again, I have filtered out to NWEA and star. Some of you may not have that option, which is okay, but if you do take more than one interim assessment, this is where you can do a comparison. And even if you don't, pick the one that you are currently using. So it says sorting by proficiency. Are you seeing the same names? How does this compare to their classroom performance and grades? So we can go through in the student roster and you can actually filter out by proficiency by doing it one of two ways. You can either double click here, and that is going to bring up all your urgent intervention kiddos. Now, for the sake of this training, because we are looking for students that are looking for interventions at this time, I'm going to stick to my urgent intervention and intervention students. So I've filtered it out this way. I can also go here like we did before and do the urgent intervention as well. And I can filter it out by period or test date. So all of these, again, you can filter out exactly how you would like to see it. Maybe it's just a certain test, just a certain period, just a certain grade. So maybe I just want my sixth graders. And some of you that are teachers are only able to see your sixth graders or whatever class you teach at the time. But for those that have multiple sections, maybe you just want to see your sixth grade. Again, this brings this all up for you. So in these students, are you seeing a common theme of the same names of students? And how does that look compared to their classroom performance? Are these same students below proficiency in both reading and math? So if you have students that are below across the board, are you seeing that in their interim assessments? And the last one, number 3, says sort by assessments, periods, and proficiency level by your most recent assessment. So how many students are under low proficiency level? Again, we need to use our judgment on what low is considered within the interim assessment. So you can sort that out by periods, assessments, and year and proficiency. So that is how you are able to use this dashboard. In our next dashboard, we're going to move over to the goals roster. So stay within the same report, but hit goals roster. Now we're going to turn to page 9 in your packets. And here we're going to view individual goals. We're going to look to view the individual goals or scores. We're going to select the goal roster tab, which we have already done. And then when looking at individual students, are you seeing discrepancies in their goal level scores to overall proficiency in the subject area selected? So this is kind of one of those where you can have, it's all in a row, every test they've ever taken, when they've taken it, what subject they've taken it in, and where they've landed within their proficiencies. But it divides it up by their goals. Now, sometimes what you'll see is a student, and I'm not sure in my training dashboard if it's going to show this, but you'll see where a student is possibly low in one area, but high in multiple other areas within that same subject. That's where you can pull out these 10-minute booster sessions, let's say, and you can say, you know what, this student's really struggling with key ideas and details, but does well on everything else within that curriculum. Let's focus on key ideas and details because that is what's bringing him down. Those are for our kiddos that we're possibly saying, do they need an intervention, or is there a reason why there's certain skills that they're missing or deficits? This is where you can take a peek here and look at what those deficits may be. So again, great way to bring to your table for MTSS, and it does take time to get this all together. You know, it's something that you need to sit down with and do as a team, maybe give someone 6th grade, someone 5th grade, and so on. But it is very usable, very sortable, and can curtail to exactly what you're looking for. Now, remember, I had 6th grade that was already clicked. So this is just showing my 6th graders, but make sure you unfilter each time because it'll keep that same filter out if you don't. We are going to move on to our next session. For session 4 will be the student goal dashboard. And again, this is where we're going to start digging a little deeper. I will see you there.